Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A slightly later one tonight. Thanks for joining us. Get your comments in. Tale of two halves, wasn't it? Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. Good to have you all with us. Jamie, Stu, and Jeff, who I haven't spoken to in so long. Great to have you with us, brother. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Jamie, talk to me, man. Frustrating.
I was on mute. God, you can tell it's been a
There's always one. We're gonna play mute bingo next time.
Yeah. I said backstage, I don't even like football. That's what this United team are doing to me at the minute. It was just like the first leg against Sevilla. You know, again, I mentioned that backstage is that we're in a position where we're cruising. That first 45, 50 minutes was one of the easiest periods of football I've seen us play in a long time.
Carbon copy of the other fixture, Old Trafford.
Yeah, and it was one of those. We were cutting through Spurs left and right. We looked like we were having fun. You've got Sancho, a great finish by Sancho. Obviously, again, a great finish by Marcus as well. And we just looked like we were up for it. It looked like it was going to be another long night for Spurs. And I made the mistake of putting in the group chat with my mates going, "Oh, Spurs have improved. You know, they only conceded after 7 minutes this time." And that's obviously come back to bite me on the arse now. So, look, we said again, we discussed it briefly backstage. I think a lot of that is down to Ten Hag. There's an argument of what's he meant to do with what he's got, and obviously that's the case for backing him in the summer. But not one of those substitutions tonight improved us, or even kept us on the same level. Every single one of those substitutions brought us down a peg, and it just invited pressure on from Spurs. It gave them the initiative, and it came back to bite us in the arse. Malacia was absolutely poor. That Fred was the Fred that we watched play alongside McTominay for too long. That's not the Fred that we've seen at the start of this season. Weghorst ran around and barely did anything. Put in one decent challenge, and I didn't see much of him. Taking Wan-Bissaka off when Wan-Bissaka had been one of our best players in that 45, 50 minutes. Again, he seems to just be on a different level this season, and we took him off, and we were infinitely worse as soon as he comes off. And Dalot went out right, Malacia went out left, and so I think that unfortunately, Ten Hag's got to sit there and look at himself and think, I've probably made a few mistakes there. Like, yes, granted, there's players that we don't have. We've got some injuries and stuff like that. Usually they're the sort of games where Garnacho comes on in the 75th, 80th minute. But I just think we got the game plan wrong in the second half. And you see Spurs build. And now for anyone as well that questions Harry Kane's worth and the potential of Harry Kane playing at Old Trafford, this was a perfect game to see what he offers. That man's distribution, his link-up play, what he offers his team as a captain is second to none, and he's the reason that they picked up a point tonight. I mean, as much as we capitulated, he's the reason that they picked up a point, because realistically, he dictated the show, he pulled the strings. Pedro Porro was good, Højbjerg was good, but Harry Kane was realistically the one that commanded it. But look, at the end of the day, we were 2-0 up against Spurs, cruising. Spurs had just lost 6-1 to Newcastle, by the way. And we decided to throw it away. So we didn't deserve anything tonight. We picked up a point. Touch wood, we're still in a good position to finish in the top four. We've got another final to look forward to. It's been an interesting season so far. It's been a good season, all things considered. But of course, these moments are still going to hurt. I'm sure we'll get into a few different, individual performances throughout the night. But off the back of Wembley, Wembley wasn't exactly great either. We just seem like we are sort of tiptoeing towards the end of the season now. We're hobbling, and I really hope that it's a strong finish to the season, because if we play like we did in the second half tonight against City in the cup final, then they're just going to win the treble.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great points. And just wanted to say, Jamie, you've been a little bit poorly recently, and it's really great to have you back, mate. Always a pleasure. Stu, I'll come to you next, mate. Do you feel and share the same sentiment? There's a real problem with capitulation this season. We've been so good at lots and lots of opportunities and at many points in the season. But when it goes bad, it goes bad, and I feel like that's a real problem, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Jamie's absolutely right, really, in his assessment of the game. And me and Jamie, we never disagree hardly ever because we see the game the same. What I wouldn't do is use the word capitulation, because sometimes you have to credit the opposition, and you were right about the capitulation, but then you quantified it by the way that Kane dragged them back into the game, and you were 100% right, Jamie, the way that he was. When I saw a different side to Harry Kane tonight, that if he does come to us in the summer, has made me actually sit up and think, wow, we could utilise him properly. But I've got to say, guys, I saw midway through the first half this result coming, because as much as we played a high quality game in the first half, we were open right from the first minute. Our defending tonight, our overall balance was nowhere near as good as it was on Sunday. We weren't as solid as a unit as we were on Sunday. We were sloppy in distribution. We were sloppy in possession. We were sloppy in our positional play. And we allowed what I would class to be mediocre players such as Richarlison give Wan-Bissaka a right problem throughout the first half, because he was just constantly running and constantly pushing and constantly pressuring Wan-Bissaka. Now, let's just quickly flip back to Sunday and look at the way that he handled Matoma. He'd never played against Matoma before, and Matoma had never played against Man United, as we all know. And so it took Wan-Bissaka 10 or 15 minutes to work him out. And once he worked him out, he was on top of him. And Jamie, again, called it 100% right. Once he'd sorted the Richarlison issue out, which he had to do by himself, by the way, because for whatever reason, Anthony wasn't quite on song tonight, he became our most important defender. Luke Shaw and Lindelof played well separately, but didn't play well together. They didn't play well as a unit. So we dropped off a lot and allowed Harry Kane, allowed Højbjerg, two of the players you picked out, Jamie, to almost dominate us. And it gave Eriksen a problem, it gave Bruno a problem, and it gave, more importantly, it gave Casemiro an issue. Because when you've got somebody who's as cute as Kane is as a footballer, which he is, a massively key footballer, it makes it very difficult, because he's popping an extra body into midfield and he will then spring past Son into attack. And so I haven't got a crystal ball, but I could see it coming. I could see where we were. And Marc, I know you'll back me up on this. I did say we could be on the wrong side of a result tonight, didn't I, on Sunday? And based on, I do think we're a tired unit. I don't necessarily think that's an excuse, but I do think we are a tired unit. But when you are a tired unit, you become fragmented. And tonight's game was all about how fragmented we were when we're out of possession, rather than how fluid we were when we were in possession. Even in the second half, when we were in possession, I thought we broke quickly. We broke with menace. We broke with pace. And we were dangerous. But you cannot escape the fact that whichever way we slice it, dice it, dissect it, whatever you want to say, Tottenham played themselves into this game beautifully. But as I say, I unfortunately, I could see it straight away. I could see it pretty much halfway through the first half that they were going to cause us problems. You have to also bear in mind they brought on a very, very good player in Kulusevski. He was a bit more dynamic, a lot quicker. You got dangerous crosses, whether people like Perisic or not. He's been doing it for years, up and down the left wing, putting in some dangerous crosses. So somebody says 2 points dropped. I can agree with that. We were 2-0 up, 2 points dropped, but football's 95 minutes, fellas. It isn't 40 minutes or 38 minutes whenever we were 2-0 up. It's 95 minutes, and you have to concentrate. We didn't concentrate, so it is what it is. We've got to move on. I think we've got a really, really difficult game against Sunday against Villa. So Yeah, that's my assessment anyway.
Yeah, great points, well made. Not looking forward to Villa myself, actually, for many, many reasons. A lot of Villa friends around here that will have it in for me, I'm sure. Loads of you watching at the minute. Obviously, really appreciate that. Also, really appreciate a like and subscribe as well. I want you to come back. And my good friend Jeff in the bottom right corner. Haven't spoken to this man for a while. It's been a long time, brother. Great to see you. Welcome back. And for everyone in the comments, because he's such a good man and it's been a long time, get some likes in for that. All right. Jeff, how you doing, bro? And how you feeling after that?
All good. Of course, there's disappointment in the result. Woke up 3:15 for this game, basically. So 3:15 in the morning.
So this man's from the Philippines, and he's been watching this obviously for a couple of hours. It's 5:30 a.m. All right. Yeah. So again, another light for what that one, an absolute soldier.
So like, I had a feeling that we had a really thin bench. So when during that first half, we should have like gotten like 3-4-0, because if we didn't, then we'd be in trouble. And with our issues with the finishing, I said, this is gonna be a long second half. And right at the get-go from the second half, you can see that there's more energy from the Spurs. So credit to them, right? I think they trust Mason more rather than Stellini at this point. Previously when Conte went out, right? So pretty disappointing. I was surprised that Casemiro was basically anonymous in this game.
Yeah, he's not quite been right since his return from his ban, has he? He's not been on it. There was a couple of great moments he had tonight. A wonderful bit of skill, great control at one point, but that was pretty much all I can remember. He's not on it, is he?
Nope, not on it. I just remembered he was in the game like latter part of the second half, and to the point of substitutions, like Ten Hag is kind of forced with his hand at this point. Like, we didn't have a center back at the bench. We didn't have really game changers, unlike Spurs, who had Kulusevski, as Stu had mentioned. So I think he's also managing the game for Sunday, because you compare Spurs and Villa at this point, like form is two ends of a spectrum, right? Villa's in the form of their lives. Spurs basically dropping down. If this result happened in like January, December, this would have been a fine result. But at this point in the league, so it's a 2 points drop definitely. So not really looking forward to how we perform on Villa, but hoping for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned actually about Ryan Mason. Actually, Steve was on the show last night on the preview, Spurs fan, and he did go into that. Obviously, of course, bit of a new manager bounce, but something that Ryan Mason has done when he's been, caretaker and involved on a few points now. He has that little bit of fight in him. He's prepared to make a few sacrifices, and that's exactly what he did with a couple of substitutions, particularly in the second half. And unfortunately, that came to bite us, and very, very disappointing. A lot of you have mentioned about Erik ten Hag tonight. Obviously, love the man, wonderful things. Can't sing his praises enough. But as Jamie said, and I'll come back to you, I want you to elaborate on that, brother. He does need to take some of that blame tonight. He made two particular subs, which I don't think were needed in Malacia and Dalla coming off. Should have stayed on that left-hand side of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Dalla moved over, didn't he? And, of course, Fred as well. And that they were both very poor. Malacia for the second goal, and Fred gave the ball away so many times, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I can almost, you can sort of see the cogs ticking in his head that, Wan-Bissaka's on a yellow card. He's worried that maybe he picks up another one, but it was his first booking of the season for a man that goes into so many challenges and times them perfectly. You sort of have to give him the benefit of the doubt and think, oh, we can trust him to stay out for another 15 minutes and not pick up a second yellow. Malacia hasn't looked. He looked bright when we started the season, when he was, battling with Shaw for that left back spot. He was looking good. He seems to have regressed. He's a young man and he's still got time to develop and things like that. But he was massively culpable. But it's a big ask to make that change and say, look, Tottenham are pressing. They're the better side at the minute, and we're really, really holding back their pressure. We need you to go out and we need you to operate in the channel that Harry Kane's been operating mainly in and try and protect against him. It's a big ask for any fullback in the world, let alone Tyrell Malacia, who has been in and out of the side recently, hasn't had a string of good performances. And it cost us, that's where the equaliser comes from. I mean, granted, the marking of the back post is poor, but you've just changed your defensive shape completely in the last 5-10 minutes. So I'm not surprised that Dalot, who's been so used to sitting out on the left-hand side, isn't tracking back. I'm not making excuses for the players here. It's just one of the first times I feel that I've really got an option to say that it's Erik ten Hag that needs to really look at himself here. And it's just a tricky one. And I think, obviously, what we really need to be looking at now is the depth that we bring into this squad. And the profile of players that come in need to be correct. Whether we're buying players to come and, again, strengthen the squad and that they're not going to start week in, week out, or whether it's players that are going to take the starting spot of someone else and push somebody else into the bench, there needs to be a profile of player that we bring in so we can be making changes in the 60th minute that don't cost us a game. Because we have seen that quite a few times in recent months, that the changes that we make invite the pressure, they change the momentum, they stop us playing the way we were playing. Eriksen coming off was bizarre, because immediately we lose that control and that calm in the middle of the park, especially with how, obviously, Bruno, I think that Bruno was very good again tonight. With the way that Bruno was drifting and he was pushing forward a lot. Casemiro, you've mentioned, wasn't as imperious as he has been the rest of the season. Eriksen was a calming presence in the middle of the park. He knows Spurs really well. Played for him for 7 years, and everything that man did tonight pretty much came off. There was that one time ball that he put into Marcus. It was absolutely delicious, and I just thought that Eriksen coming off for Fred was very bizarre, because we instantly lost that presence, that calming factor. We lost the ability to distribute the ball between the lines, and Fred misplaced every single pass pretty much. I don't know, that might not be the correct stat, obviously don't quote me on that, but pretty it looks as if,
I don't think you're far wrong, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'll just try and find out.
You've got Sabitzer sat there. I would have rather seen Sabitzer come on for it. If we're going to take Eriksen off, you bring Sabitzer on. And then I think that bringing on Martial and Weghorst at the same time just killed any sort of goal threat that we might have had. Well, we didn't bring them on the same, but having them on the pitch at the same time, because you've instantly got Martial, who just looks off the pace. He doesn't look interested. And I do think, for a man that is fighting for his United career, which I personally think is done now anyway, he'll be moved on in the summer, you'd expect to see a little bit more fight, a little bit more movement and passion from him. There was that moment where Anthony tried to play the ball into him and was then shouting at him for not moving a bit quick enough and for being too static. And you imagine that that's the frustration that you get playing with him at times. So I just think that them two didn't complement each other. Rashford ends up getting stuck out wide, and not in the way that we like to see Rashford out wide. He wasn't playing as an inside forward. He wasn't playing tucked into the fullback. I mean, he had a good few moments, but he was hugging the touchline a lot. He wasn't linking up well with Martial. Everything they were trying just didn't come off. And you've got to say that there's a lot of players still hanging around the club that Ten Hag's got to be looking at and going, if I can't trust you to come on at 2-0 up at a Spurs side that have just lost 6-1 to Newcastle, if I can't trust you to come on and at least just stop us from losing, what can I trust you with at this football club? So, yes, Ten Hag is probably to blame for the result tonight. But there's some players in there as well that I really hope he gives them both barrels. I hope he really drags them, because it's a pain for other players. You look at the likes of Bruno. Bruno's probably sat there thinking, what more can I do sometimes for this football club? I think that, Stuart the nail on the head. I think Luke Shaw and Victor Lindelof were both very good tonight individually. I think Shaw was fantastic for most of the game. Yes, and the fact that he stepped in so often when needed to a centre half and has put in the performances that he does, I think is a credit to him as a man. And this is the Luke Shaw that we all knew that we were going to get at some point, and he has been fantastic. But there's players week in, week out who probably sit there and think, what more can I do at this football club to stop us from, but not capitulating, but you know what I mean, to stop the other people from ruining it for us. And it must be frustrating. It must be absolutely frustrating.
The thing is, Jamie, just to interject there, this is something that isn't new to us. I think that, over the course of the last few months, we've been very lucky probably to be in the position and get the results that we have. But we've always had this issue of squad, not a good enough second team. Essentially, the players can't fit in, as you were saying, and obviously that's not on Erik ten Hag, that's on the club, and these things need to be addressed. But this has worked for us before. We've had that same squad of players all seasons, right? Barring a couple that have been injured, so and so. So what do you think that difference is now? Surely it's got to be more to do with obviously the players that are coming on, but also due to fatigue as well.
Yeah, I think, again, Stu mentioned before, we're like a tired unit. We've played the most amount of football in I'm pretty sure that stat's still accurate, that we've played the most amount of football out of any side in Europe.
We've won the most amount of games as well in top 5 leagues.
And this is what I was saying before. It's been a good season, all things considered, and I just really hope that this final 7 or 8 game stretch, it's not even going to be that anymore, is it? It's going to be 6 games. Doesn't derail what's been a phenomenal season for us. We just, like I say, we look like we're hobbling to go over the line. We've got players that are coming back in from injury. We've got players that are operating in different roles for us every time they play. Weghorst, again, I'm not defending him here because I think he was just poor tonight, but Weghorst has spent time playing as the lone centre forward. Weghorst has spent time playing as a number 10. You've seen Weghorst at times slot into centre mid and play a sort of almost a box-to-box role and be our first man in defence. Fred, again, doesn't know whether he's playing as a defensive midfielder, as an 8, as a 10. So these players are coming in and out of the side, playing different roles, and maybe they just don't have the opportunity. So maybe they just don't have the ability to do that. to be. You look at Pep Guardiola's City, right? He'll bring Bernardo Silva on at left back, and Bernardo Silva will be like, yeah, no worries, and put in an 8 out of 10 performance. He'll bring him on a centre mid, he'll bring him on at right wing, he'll bring him on as a 10 or whatever, and he'll do the job because Pep Guardiola has a very specific profile of player that he likes to work with. We look at how he's ostracising Kyle Walker at the minute, because Pep's got bored with football again and is now chopping and changing what he wants his fullbacks. He's playing with 4 centre halves because he's then going, you know what, 2 of you are going to play as holding midfielders, because he just gets bored of football and he's going, Kyle Walker doesn't have the skill set that I want, and Ten Hag's going to have to get to that point with some of it. And I think he is. We've seen things like Maguire's been dropped again. I don't buy this injury nonsense.
No, I don't.
He's been kept at the side for a reason. We saw him in the pre-match interview refer to Bruno as our captain. Whether that's a Freudian slip or whether he means that he's our captain on the night. If you read in between the lines, he's protecting the player because he wants to move him on in the summer. And who's going to buy a player where the manager goes, he's not good enough to sit on the bench week in, week out, I'm going to keep him out. So, you know what I mean? Sorry, I've gone on a little bit too long here, but
I can add a bit of context to it, Jamie, if you like. Just a little bit of context here, because strangely enough, and what I'm about to say is going to sound a bit strange, but it's actually true. There are some players that cannot adapt to being a substitute. They cannot come on and involve themselves into the game. And so what they tend to do, they rush around, like the Energizer Bunny. They just try and pull, chase the ball everywhere. It's like coaching under 6s at times, because they can't adapt. If they don't start the game, they've got a real mental block, and I
think it's also nobody is ready to kind of not do as they're told, but be called upon if they need to be. If he wants to make a bit of rotation, to come on and actually do 110%. No, you absolutely no, but they're not ready to do that. If players aren't starting and they're on the bench, they don't know how to adapt to come on and give it 110%. If players are on the field, ready. Yeah, I agree.
Ready. When you're in that changing room, right? And I used to. I was fortunate. I was a regular, but I would be white on a Thursday evening after training. I'd be white as a ghost until the team's announced. Although I'd be playing, every game until my name was called, I'd be absolutely panicking. I'd be white. I'd be shaking and everything. And I always used to think, if I don't make the team, what have I done wrong? So I'll prepare myself. And so, even if you're a substitute, you prepare yourself as if you're a first teamer. You prepare yourself to be ready to come on at the click of a finger. So you're warming up constantly. Your shin pads are in the right place, ready to go. Your shirt's where it should be, ready to put on when you need it. So you're not dicking about looking for your shin pads. You're not dicking about looking for your shirt, not dicking about looking for a bottle and things of this nature. They're all around you, and they should, you're ready to go. So when Ten Hag goes like that, because that's all they do, they go like that. They click the finger, and he's pointing in your direction, doing that. You're up, bang, 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 and within 10 seconds, you should be ready and down. You should be ready and down. If you're any later than 10 seconds, you're not prepared. You're not mentally prepared for the game, and you're not ready for the game. And this is the problem that we're having. And you're absolutely right, Mark, but it's bang out of order because these players, you can whinge and moan all you like. I mean, crikey, for the times I was dropped, me, I'd be like a bear with a sore head. I'd be fuming, kicking stuff, walking around in a fucking daze. Right, still, I'll fuck off, because I'm not playing. And then suddenly you switch on. And you've got to get yourself ready. So when you're in that tunnel and you're walking past them, you've got to make sure you're ready. And, we weren't ready. The timing of the substitutions was bizarre, actually. And I think somebody made a point. It might have been Freddie. Yeah, that's it. They can't seem to play 90 minutes. These guys, And there's sometimes in a game, and I think tonight is one of those games where you don't change it. Where you leave those 11 out there for the 90 minutes, and you rely on them, and you even say to them at the beginning of the game, "Look, guys, you may be on there for 90 minutes, so you've got to get your breathers when you can, and things of that nature." So, Jamie's right. Jeff was right. It is disappointing, but there are failings in our squad at the moment. There's no two ways. There's failings at the management level. And there's failings at player level. And, Ten Hag, at the end of the season, when he does his stock take, so to speak, he does his assessment, his analogy, gets together with his coaches, gets together with the board, whoever the board is at that particular time, and he runs through it. He'll have a massive tick box for a great season, but he'll know the mistakes that he's made along the way. And the mistakes that he's made along the way, which is what we identified 4 months ago, sorry, Jeff, you weren't on the show, but us three did, and Freddie, that they're not playing the fringe players enough. So when the fringe players come onto the pitch, they're not ready, and that's what's happening.
And unfortunately, that's down to strength in depth. And as Jamie, as Jeff, and you've said, it's down to him not trusting the bench that he's got and the players that he's got around him, I think.
Absolutely.
Right. Moving on to going to try and bring the positivity back. Absolutely right. Great points, well made. I did want to come to this comment. I wanted to ask Jeff about this one. So obviously, Freddie, sad you can't be with us tonight, buddy. I hope you're well, and I hope you're having a good time abroad. Is it a concern that Eriksen, Sancho, and Anthony, as obviously Stu's already alluded to, that they can't complete 90 minutes? That first half with Jadon in particular, he was a different player. When you know what I mean? He's got his goal, was in and about everywhere, making spaces, linking up. He was in those pockets, and he was wonderful. But is it a concern? And particularly Jadon, don't want to pick on him, but obviously he's been under a bit of scrutiny. I think he's really got make or break. Really, I think next season, if anything, is that a concern for you too? And like I said, particularly with Jadon as well.
I think it's for this particular game, as Stu mentioned, it's not about they couldn't complete the 90 minutes. I'm pretty sure they could have completed today because of how they played. I mean, Anthony was, there and there, but at least he was pressing back, and he didn't have like a sign of fatigue whatsoever, right? So I think they could have completed 90 minutes this game, but again, it was on the Ten Hag. Like, was he making these substitutions just because he needed to, right? Or just because he wanted to? But for those three, I mean, Eriksen has had a couple of games back in his pocket since that injury. They could have. I mean, it's not about they can't. This was more on Ten Hag at this point. So maybe if they stayed on, maybe we could have gotten that third goal at least. They would have gotten two up. Those two goals, one way or another, right? Because with the energy that came out during the second half, but in general, we could have had that 3 points because we can really replace them with someone, as Jamie and Stu has mentioned already, that can at least maintain that level of energy and fluidity that we had, right? So Fred actually had that ability during the early part of the season, but for some reason he has regressed, particularly because he was in a six again. But if he was like an attacking eight at this, if he came in as an attacking eight, maybe he could have done better. But Fred being Fred, he's not helping his case, right? So they could have finished 90 minutes, to be honest. So that's a missed opportunity for Ten Hag there.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I'm just going to quickly jump in on that as well. I agree with everything that Jeff said. And then just on obviously the three players that we're talking about there, Eriksen, Sancho, and Antony. I think obviously it's an interesting one because with Eriksen, you've got a man who we all know what happened to him at the World Cup, the Euros. Yeah, Euros. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that Ten Hag does feel like he needs to manage his fitness and manage his game time. But I agree with what John said in the comments as well, that the way that him and Bruno were dictating and holding that midfield, it was an odd time for us to make that change. And with Sancho, what baffled me tonight is that, like you said, that's probably Jadon's best period of football he's played for us all season.
I agree, yeah.
He got that goal in the 7th minute, and it looked like it gave him a bit of confidence. He wanted to try and go past the player. He wanted to run at players and give the ball off. So if you then take him off while he's in that sort of good form, he's going to sit there and go, oh, what have I done wrong this time? And it'll start to eat away at him. We've seen him go away for a couple of months for his individual training camp. So again, maybe Ten Hag's looking and going, I need to manage this guy because I want him to be better next season. And I'd rather take him off after 60 minutes this season and have him as a 90-minute player next. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but it does seem like a baffling decision to bring off somebody that's been struggling for form, has found some good form in a big game like this. And it's such a catalyst for him to hopefully go on and finish the season strong. And then he'll now go home and think, either what did I do wrong to get hooked, or if I'd have stayed on, would I have been able to change the game and make a difference? And then with Antony, it's an odd one because time and time again, we see as soon as Antony leaves, we're more exposed down the right-hand side. Yes, today he didn't look as on it as he usually does in terms of his defensive duties. I don't know whether he was given a different instruction by Ten Hag, but it's something that we're repeating and it doesn't work necessarily because he has that tenacity to get back. He has a good relationship with Wan-Bissaka. He has a decent relationship with Dalot. Stu and I have spoken about this many times over the course of this season. And whenever we hook him, we immediately start to concede more pressure down that defensive right-hand side. So it's an interesting one. I'm sure that Ten Hag knows more about management than I know, obviously. No one's debating that. It's just frustrating that tonight is something that we've all seen little bits of throughout the season and we've spoken about, and it's all come to fruition tonight. So yeah, I hope that the substitutions are a case of he's managing the players. He might have come in and gone, you lot are nowhere near fit enough to play the football I want to play. We're going to have a rough season of training drills, fitness drills, and I'm going to manage your fitness properly so that the season after. And to be fair, they've had a baptism by fire. They've played X amount of games. They've played so many games of football. It's good to see that Eriksen came back from his injury and still has maintained the high ceiling that he set. But yeah, I think that Ten Hag is probably sitting there. When we see the little clips of him writing notes, he's probably sitting there writing his wish list for the summer. Do you know what I mean? Going, we need 5 or 6 players here because he can't be bringing Fred on for him to do that. I like Fred. I've liked Fred this season, but Stu was bang on when he said that Fred coming on as a substitute does not have the same level of calm and discipline as the Fred that starts a game. And Ten Hag will be looking at that going
ultimately as Eriksen.
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nowhere in the same league, is he? And it's a shame. But look, and I keep maintaining it, and I say it all the time. If you want to play at the elite level, you want to play at the elite club, the best club in world football, you've got to do everything in your power to stay there. I say to the kids that I coach sometimes, it's only a very, very small thing because I'm not really sure you should get player of the match when you're an under 8 or an under 9, but you have to do it because the parents love it, etc., etc. I always say to the lads, look, if you've not made player of the match this week, make sure it's you that's getting the award next week. That's your challenge this week, is to make sure that it's you next week. Fred's challenge is, if I'm not starting, okay, then I've got to be the very best I can be when I come on so that I can start next week. And it's not
prove you're wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly, Fred. Jeff, prove me fucking wrong.
Fred.
I'm so used to having Freddie here, Jeff. I'm so used to having Freddie here. I'm so sorry, mate. But
No worries.
to be fair, Freddie is equally as good looking as you. So, yeah.
Well saved.
I think Jeff's a bit better looking, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Well,
I would agree.
Freddie's not here, so yeah, we can say that, can't we?
Right. We're going to come to the ratings. I don't want to keep it too long tonight, boys. Obviously, we started a little bit later. My iWatch is about to talk to me, not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. Anyway, so we'll start with David De Gea. And I come to you first, Jeff. Obviously, a little bit of criticism recently. Bounced back against Brighton. I felt was pretty good. I think it was, defensive errors tonight that let us down towards leading up to the goal. But out of 10, of course, you can give whatever you want, 6.5, 7, whatever. What would you give him tonight, and a kind of a reason why, please, buddy?
Well, he wasn't too busy tonight, to be fair, but both goals. Well, Porter's goal was just bonkers, right? Outside foot shot, top corner, so no chance of saving.
Yeah, fantastic finish that was.
Yeah. So fair play to Porto, right? Second goal was more of a defensive lapse. So I'm generous today, so might give him an 8. He didn't try too hard in terms of
that is generous. That's
generous. Well done,
generous today, right? He didn't try too hard in terms of like kicking the ball short, right? So he just did what he did. He didn't get too cute about it. He just had to whack it if he needed and just pass to, that's the difference again, I guess, with Lindelof and Maguire, right? So Lindelof's way better on the ball than Maguire, right? And in terms of spatial awareness. So I think he was more confident passing to his center backs today. So yeah, it's a bit of a 7.5 to 8. So that's on a generous side. Right? So
yeah, that's fair. Listen, we love all that. We love the positivity, and absolutely fine. One thing I will say tonight, his distribution was so much better. The one thing that we can all sit here and get frustrated with.
And
there were a couple.
I wonder why.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, on the other hand, I just want to point out the positives. There were a couple of points tonight where he sort of played it out from the back, to the nearest defender, but on several occasions, all over the place, and did a great job with that. So listen, whilst we criticise him for that, I just wanted to make that point. And
agreed.
And listen, I love the positivity, Jeff. Absolutely right. But you'll listen to these two now, and they'll be scathing, and you'll see how we really rate. Right, but let's go to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and I'll come to you, Jamie.
Yeah, I think he was one of our best players tonight. It's nice, we've spoken for the years that we've been doing these podcasts together, and I've always sang Wan-Bissaka's praises. He went through that dip in form. And even at the start of the season, there was reports that Ten Hag had no use for him. And look at him now. Look at, the performance he's putting against Brighton on Sunday, and the performance he's putting. These aren't flukes. He's doing it week in, week out. And I think that he was very good tonight. I like the way, I love the way that he pops up as almost an inside forward at times. You'll see him and he'll be on the inside of the area. He's undercut Anthony or whatever, and he's there to receive the ball. And he's developing as a right back. He came to us as a very raw, tough tackling, one of the best defensive fullbacks in the league, and he's adding more strings to his bow. And this is another good notch for him. It's annoying because of obviously the scope of the game and how we've been left with a sour taste in our mouth. But I'd give him about a 7 tonight. I think he was fantastic, and he dealt with the threats really well. And the game changed when he came off.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And let me just tell you another story, really. Luke Shaw as well. And what I'm saying is the same credit needs to be given to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Luke Shaw had a double leg break, went through various managers, was absolutely chastised by Jose Mourinho. Now, I'm not saying Aaron Wan-Bissaka's situation is the same, but it's not too dissimilar, okay, to go out of form, to have all the comments and everything that he would have seen, and to bounce back in the manner that he has, I think needs to be applauded so much more. And absolutely right, Jamie. I think he was one of our better players tonight. Right, moving on to Lindelof, and I'll give that one to you, Stu.
7. A mixed bag for me tonight. I thought he played okay, as I said, individually, but not brilliant as a pair with Shaw tonight. So it was a bit of a mixed bag. I called out position a couple of times, but did well against Kane. on a couple of times as well. So I'm gonna have to give him a 7.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Right, moving on to Luke Shaw. Jeff.
Ooh, Jeffrey.
Okay, so maybe I'll give him like a 7 as well. As both of you mentioned already, like they've done well individually. They've done their job. They're not as cohesive as like Varane and Licha, but Luke Shaw has been a good auxiliary center back every time he's come on that position. So he held his own. Again, he wasn't able to do much against Poro's finish, but
Yeah.
in general, he did well. So 7.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Jamie, I'm going to give you both Dalot and Malacia.
I think Dallow's probably a 5. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but I think that he was the weak link in the defence. I don't know if
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah.
He could have had 2 ranges though, like one at left back, one at right back. So.
Yeah, true. I think he struggled with the switch as well. I think that his role when he's playing left back is different than his role when he plays right back, and he struggles to make that switch sometimes. And I think he's been quite hot and cold for us in recent times. He's done really well to deputise at left back. Don't get me wrong. With the fact that because of the injuries to Varane and to Licha, that Shaw moving across, Dallow's done well in that role. But tonight he struggled a little bit. I think a lot of their joy did start to come from down that side where Pedro Porro seemed to have free reign, did really well. Kane was operating around there. Obviously, Perisic and Son had a little bit of fun. And Richarlison obviously did well against Wan-Bissaka originally, but I think Dalot was quite poor, so I give him a 5. Malacia, 1, disastrous. And I don't want to slate the young man. It's his first season here, but he needs to sort them performances out because he's had more than one of those recently. Marc, we spoke very highly of him at the start of the season. That he looked bright, he looked fun.
I think his ceiling is unbelievable. It's just. Listen, when you're 18, you come into a massive club, into a very disjointed squad, and then are playing bit parts and not able to string together a number of games, let alone good performances. I think it's very difficult on any type of character, and I think he will come good. It's just a really bad lapse in concentration on a couple of occasions tonight.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we forget he's a young lad, isn't he? In his first season, so no, I agree with that.
Good. Right, let's move on to Casemiro, or not so at the moment, and I'll come to you, Stu. Over to you.
Yeah, as I said before, he gets a 6 because I think the addition of Kane in the middle alongside Horbier was a real problem for him. I've been babbling on about Horbier for a long time. As a quality footballer, does the very, very simple stuff very, very well. And you know what it's like, the fan base slates you, fucking Horbier, you must be joking, blah, 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 and all that kind of nonsense. Well, just look how he played tonight. He's tenacious, he was aggressive, but he's good with the ball. And we just couldn't get to grips with Horbier at all in the middle of the park. And so Casemiro, we suffered, so he gets a 6 for me.
Interesting. I'm not sure if you know, but interesting little fun fact for you. When Real Madrid lost Casemiro, they were looking at Højbjerg to replace him.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So it wouldn't surprise me at all, and I rate him quite highly. Right, Jeff, I'm going to give you Eriksen and Fred, please, buddy.
Wow. Fred would be a 1, I guess. Yeah, I'm just going by Jamie standards, right?
Well, you couldn't give him any more, Jeff. You couldn't give him any more.
Eriksen would be like maybe a 6.5, right? Because he was pulling the strings when he was there. Those 3 in the midfield, I guess Ten Hag read that stat that we're unbeaten when those 3 start. So I guess he was tempted to just start with them. And even though Fred operates better as a starter, he just stuck with it anyway. But difference in form, difference in what we had to offer in the field between Eriksen and Fred. So 6.5.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Maybe a little bit harsh. Don't always listen to Jamie. He comes out with some shit sometimes, and maybe a little bit. Nah, we love him. Right, Jamie, Bruno Fernandes had an absolutely sensational first half. I thought actually one of his better games. Some of the passes that he was able to pull off were absolutely unbelievable. Probably should have scored 2 goals himself, hit the crossbar, assisted, and then he was trying everything in the second half, and I can't blame him for that. So anyway, with that out of the way, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, he's a complete midfielder. Do you know what I mean? He plays across all 3 of the midfield positions, and he does them all with a plum. I think he was unlucky tonight. It was that again. That man will be seething with himself because that's the standard that he holds to himself. He'll be watching that, him hitting the bar. He'll watch that footage back, and you can guarantee that he'll stay behind in training and practice that situation because that's the sort of person that he is. And it would have been so poetic if he'd have scored what hopefully would have turned out to be the winner after the whole week of he's got a protection boot on, is he going to play, is he not? And it's mind games, isn't it? He's probably got that in the cupboard somewhere and gone to his missus, take a photo of me wearing this, it'll be really funny. I think he was solid. No, he was a 7. He was a 7 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? Everything he tried was coming off most of the time, and you see right at the end he's running around like an headless chicken, but in a positive way. Because he wants to win for this club. He knows what it means to this club to win. And he does it week in, week out for us. And anyone that doesn't see his contribution to this football club is either watching football with a TV turned off or needs to get themselves down to Specsavers and get their prescription changed, because this man is he is spectacular. Opposition fans hate him for a reason. They'll always say, it's because he whines and he moans. It's like, no, it's because he's mint.
Yeah,
and you don't like it. Yeah. He does whine and he does moan, but when he's as good as he is, I don't care. So 7. He should have been the match winner.
Yeah, all the best players do whine and moan, Jay.
Yeah, of course they do.
That's what makes them great.
Yeah, they want a bit more. Right, before we come on to the 3 strikers, we're going to do this these next 3 really, really quickly, guys. We've got a show tomorrow night with your man Keane. He's hosting. We've got a member or 2 from the 1958 and 2 former United players. It was supposed to be earlier in the week. Unfortunately, Keane was a little bit ill, but going to be a big, big show tomorrow night about the protests, obviously, against Villa this weekend. Obviously, you might be interested. Obviously, a few sort of arrangements and stuff, so get involved and make sure you come back for that tomorrow night. It should be a very, very good one and certainly informative, so make sure you come back for that. Right, moving on to Anthony, and I'll come to you, Stu.
5.
5, quick, short and sweet, love it.
Jeff, I got nothing to say really. I'm sorry, just a 5.
Yeah, well, we kind of spoke about him earlier, wasn't tracking back probably as much, and didn't really do a hell of a lot in the game, did he? Jeff, Sancho.
Sancho would be 7 for me. So he did well in the first half. He deserved to finish the game, basically. So he could have had an 8. Yeah.
I think it was one of his better performances. Scored the goal, obviously, and can't disagree. 6 or 7 for me. I think that's fair. Jamie, over to you finally, mate. Marcus Rashford. We won't bring anyone else into play because I'm pretty sure Martial didn't do much, and Weghorst made one really great challenge, and that was it for me tonight.
That was it, yeah, for Weghorst.
Rashford, over to you, brother.
Difference maker again, and it's just he'll be fuming that his goal hasn't ended up being the one that wins us the game or whatever. Great finish. He had a couple of chances. On another night, he would have scored a hat-trick. It's funny because we talk about it's an end of a goal drought. He's gone 4 games without scoring. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. His numbers speak for themselves, and he's if we were an American team, he'd be the franchise player because he is the face of Manchester United these days, and he's my boy. I love him to death. I'd probably say another 7. It feels weird giving these performances, these ratings, given the fact that we threw away a 2-0 lead, but the players that we're giving
the first half was so good, it's hard not to, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes. He's maturing as a goal scorer. He's maturing as a striker. He can play either with his back to goal. He can play as a centre forward. He can hold the ball up. He receives the ball well. His first touch is impeccable and immaculate. His link-up play is getting better and better with, his 2 compatriots that he plays most, with Sancho and Anthony. They're the ones that he plays week in, week out with most of the time. He's getting better at linking up with them. And I think that we're going to see more and more come. And he's a special, special guy.
Special guy indeed. Number 29 now. I think before the season started, with the form that he was in over the last year and a half and the injuries he's had, no one, and I don't care who you are, no one would have guessed that many goals. Listen, boys, I really appreciate all of you here tonight. I know it's a late one. Really, really appreciate your time. Jamie, great to have you back, buddy. Stu, as always. And Jeff, great to have you with us, my man. I hope you're well. Yeah, he'll be back on again, I can assure you. Listen, as I said, tomorrow night, big one. Preview as well at some point, and a match reaction as well. And you might see some of these faces again. But until then, we will see you next time.